Moving as fast as we can. Sailing at a good clip, but we're moving so fast, I'm actually running on the ship, is what I see on a treadmill. I'm not sure what the image means, but welcome back. It is a new week, a new dawn, new images, new art, new artists. A one-of-a-kind show broadcast around the world. Welcome back, and thank you for all the support, my co-creators. You are my co-creators, my collaborators. Thank you, everybody. Welcome back, Artist Journal, October 14th, 2024. Soon it's going to be 2025. My name's Adrian Pocobelli. You know, I was at the grocery store and I saw Christmas. I saw Christmas cookies, Christmas decorations, and I thought, wow, we're not even halfway through October. Germany loves Christmas. Of course, I am in Berlin, Germany here, if I haven't mentioned that. And they love Christmas. Let me tell you, grocery store, it was like a week ago. Actually, I already was seeing Christmas. So all to say, 2025 is approaching fast. So I thought we could start out here kind of on a humorous note a little bit. But I have to say, I love this work. Like, it actually was the work. I mean, many works jump out at me, but this one, I saw it and I just kind of wanted it to be the opener. Motohiro Hayakawa. We've seen a ton of Motohiro Hayakawa, or Moto 583, I believe it is. Yeah, Moto 583. We've seen works like this before. A spectacular illustrator. It's tempting to call surreal, but it's, you know, they sometimes call it classic surrealism. And neo-surrealism, I think, is what you'd call. There's kind of we talked about a new wave of pixel art. There's, I guess, a lot of new waves of things. You know, one of the new waves we've seen, or a return to, is surrealism. Now, I don't know if I would consider Motohiro, he's not a classic surrealist in the sense of being influenced by Sigmund Freud necessarily and trying to kind of put together these, inner landscapes, shall we say. Here it seems to be, and I'm just thinking out loud, speculating, another artist I don't know too much about, but we've been looked at a ton of Motohiro's work, and this is more of just a direct juxtaposition. Like if you see here, okay, let's put a head on some legs. And apologies, I'm a little under the weather here, so if my voice is however it is, just so you know. Here, another, like, it's a blunt juxtaposition. Here's another one, right? So it's got a different feel than surrealism, than a kind of Dali-like, shall we say, a Salvador Dali-like double image. Right, the paranoid image where you think you're seeing one thing, but your brain, where one thing is being portrayed, it's just a cigar, but maybe you're starting to see something else, where A doesn't equal A equals B. Manifest content, latent contents, the surface, the underlying, getting to the reality, appearance and reality, all these things. This doesn't seem to be that. This is, weirdly, I'd say just a bit more playful. You could argue it has a bit of a surrealist aspect to it, but it's a bit of a different beast, and again, it doesn't seem to be there doesn't seem to be something kind of, you could argue surrealism, I would argue, to a certain degree as a philosophy, or a philosophy can be distilled from surrealism, and I'd always point to Ballard. If you want to, hear that philosophy in about 3 pages, go to the introduction to Crash. The French introduction to Crash, there's a couple. Some are, one's longer, one's shorter. Sometimes they don't put the introduction at all, which I find kind of interesting. Why would you not put the introduction if you're a major publisher to that? Kind of weird, hey? Anyway, so again, this seems to be of a different order. This is kind of, I want to say, a little bit more playful. And yeah, so just as a kind of, here we have like monsters going in. Again, we have these bizarre, we could say a very kind of irrational type image. For example, these squirrels kind of moving in and out of a skull. Delightfully playful. delightfully imaginative. I mean, you get the sense that if Motohiro didn't make these images, no one would have made these images. Moto583 Motohiro on Instagram. So let's just take a quick look at this opening image. I guess it was the fact that there is YouTube I kind of found interesting. I mean, what spoke to me? Why did I want to start with this, for example? And I think it does jump out. I think it's the fact that YouTube was used in a very interesting way. But I'm still back to this idea of the newspaper, the imagination, this thing that's on the side of the street. I think this would turn people's heads. I think they'd be like, what is this? Right? In a sense, there is a recontextualization, is another way of framing this, of, say, YouTube and the YouTube logo. This isn't on a website. This is on a kind of billboard or perhaps like a drive-in movie theater screen. And you have this huge logo, interesting, and there it seems to be on a beach, this graphite on paper drawing, a remote control, and actually, I think the title is Holiday, posted to Instagram, by the way, a bowl of fruit, and here is the person, again, almost like a beach lounge chair, not even perfectly, the perspective even kind of a little off-kilter, perhaps, the line going a little over. And interestingly, and then you get this, what seems like a baby, perhaps, with like diapers that are too big, and oh, wait, that's not a head. That looks like a ball or something, a balloon, I don't know. And there's the person looking off into the logo. So there's something very delightful in these works. And a final thing just on the technical side of things. There aren't too many clues, but you see how this, so they're in Motohiro. Let me just make sure I'm getting the name right. Motohiro Hayakawa. Motohiro Hayakawa is an illustrator, as we're going to see. We're going to look at the bio in a second here. But just final little parts here I want to sort of highlight, which are these little lines here, and actually specifically over here. Do you see it where the baby is? You see there's almost these light lines, or the foot. It's like it's been blocked in a bit, or there's been a little bit of even the tail here, that there's just a light sort of illustration you see here. And then kind of, I think in traditional drawing and painting, like 19th century academic style, you would block things in. And of course, that's how you do a light sketch first. That's generally how most people do it. You do a light sketch first, and then you put in darker lines. Makes perfect sense. So that seems to be going on here. And I actually love this kind of ambiguous table here, or blanket, whatever it is, at the end with this overly large remote, but it doesn't matter, right? And the dog. So all just kind of cool, and not even bothering with the background here, but seems to be on a beach. But could be concrete for all we know, assuming a beach because of the swimsuit, right? And then the legs even crossed over here. So just a really interesting artist. Let's read a bit. Out of Japan. So kind of in our Japan phase here last couple of days, last couple of shows. Yamaguchi, Japan, Motohiro Hayakawa. And I'll just read a little bit here. Since we've looked at a ton of Motohiro's work, but we haven't seen, but we haven't really known anything about them. Lurid monsters, clanking robots, and 70s-inspired sci-fi heroes, sporting kitsch outfits and laser guns, Motohiro Hayakawa's comic-style battle scenes are places where the action never stops, thrilling invitations to step inside and join the fun. And indeed, there is kind of a comic art style to the execution. Born in Japan, Hayakawa studied at the region's technical institute at Yamaguchi Prefecture before going on to work in illustration and comics. So another, I think of Limbo there, another comic illustrator. Major influences include the science fiction adventures and cartoons of his childhood. In particular, Space Sheriff, a cult Japanese TV show aired in the early 80s. Isn't this interesting, right? Because sometimes I talk about, what I kind of loosely, but not so loosely, call the second generation of digital art, and how important, among other things, video games were to that aesthetic that I think we could consider that is very prominent now, at least what we see on the blockchain. There is a certain kind of, this isn't net art, so to speak. I think, actually, someone sent me a like, hopefully I remember next show. There's some really cool net art thing I want to show you. There were too many things to show, as usual here. Let's continue. The U.S. cartoonist and illustrator Gary Panter, who I have heard of, but I do not remember. Shall we do a quick look on Gary Panter? Okay. Jimbo. I worked in a comic store, so I feel like I've definitely seen this before, but this is pretty underground, Gary Panter, and you can see, a loose, connection here between the artists. I mean, very loose. Here, there's a little bit more kind of ink, I want to say, and a little bit more, I want to say, cross-hatching. The U.S. cartoonist and illustrator Gary Panter is also cited by Hayakawa, together with a range of musical inspirations from pop to punk. So a very modern influence, buffet of influence, for lack of a better term, using a mixture of different textures and techniques, fine lines, jelly-like forms, and fluorescent color. Hayakawa creates imagined scenes charged with energy and narrative flair. Since 2009, he has exhibited in galleries across Tokyo, including at the Morishita Cultural Center, and is a member of Tokyo's Illustrators Society. He held a show in Madrid in 2013, and his comic book Laserbeam was released by the French publishing house Le Dernier Cri, The Last Cry, in the same year. So, interesting kind of background. I don't usually go that far into the background, but I just know so little, and we've looked at so much that I think it is worth our while here. So just a few examples as well on this website, Collection Solo. And maybe that is from the Madrid show, not sure. And there we see just other examples of Hayakawa's work here, as you see this kind of sci-fi. So very, very interesting and original artist, as you can see here. And even these little wars and everything. There's something just, again, super delightful. And when I see the work, I would not be sad at all to put this on my wall. Like, I'd be quite excited. So just another great talent here. Let's see what else I brought up here. As this loads up here, a little bit of a late start here. So here we go. Here are some, so we've seen this in the past, Turkey on the semi-truck, and these huge works here. Let me see. Yeah, sort of having a little bit of an issue. Let's bring up just a couple of these paintings here. Here, as you see here, and unfortunately, so this, and let me do this. This is probably the full painting, and then you see up close here all the little details of this very interesting artist. So again, you saw that Collection Solo was there. So just an interesting artist, and yeah, unfortunately having issues loading things up properly here. But another, you see here, the surrealism and the fun of this artist. I guess the final point I'd want to make here is a hard artist to place. Again, you try and say, okay, surrealism. Kind of, but not really. At least not what I'd call classic surrealism. Maybe you could call it neo-surrealist, but again, it doesn't seem to have that kind of psychological Freudian angle in the juxtapositions. This seems to be juxtaposition more, there is something psychological about putting hard juxtapositions like that. And, the effect, as we see here. So to a certain degree, we do have to call this, surreal. But, this isn't Magritte either, if you know what I'm saying. This is like with a lot more humor. And although there is humor in Magritte, of course, and just like, it's hard to place. It feels very now to a certain degree. And what I love about it, finally here, is remember Ballard, bringing it back to Ballard, who we were just mentioning in the context of Crash, J.G. Ballard, the author, the naive. This idea of the naive, and he was celebrating, William Burroughs, Andy Warhol, as being kind of naives of sorts. These, what he'd call innocent or also honest. And again, we were thinking in terms of sad, Marquis de Sade as being just kind of ruthlessly honest with putting whatever he could put on, probably trying to be outrageous at the same time. But again, this kind of being this idea of honesty and naivete, quote unquote, and naivete being a positive quality, it's often used as kind of a negative, right? Oh, it's naive, it doesn't know what it's doing. This seems to have kind of a certain degree of the naif in a good way, in the sense that you don't get the sense that Motohiro, and let me just make sure, again, forgive the, you don't get the sense that the artist just want to get their name right, that Motohiro is, you get the sense that Motohiro is really, as Ballard would put it, pursuing his own obsessions, right? Just being true to the things that make him happy. I feel like it was in the Rubin, or the guy, Rick Rubin. He's got the famous book, and I still haven't listened to it. People say I need to listen to it, but there's the book on creativity. I believe the name of the producer is Rick Rubin, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember seeing a video, I think it was on Instagram, maybe a clip, where it was this idea that, make art for yourself. Don't make art for the audience. Make it where you love it, and then the audience will basically, the things that resonate with you will likely resonate with the audience. And that also can be factored into this idea of the naif, so to speak. Again, just kind of following without overly worrying about the external world, what works for you, and pursuing it, and pursuing that logic. Is because, in a sense, what we see here, finally, with Motohiro is a kind of logic, right? I mean, there is a logic to these images. There is a consistency where if I looked at this for the first time, I'd say, I think I know who the artist is, right? There is a visual logic, so to speak. There is a consistency in the sense of a way of thinking. So, don't want to go too far here, but you see how radical some of these works are, and just kind of weird and delightful, as you see with these kind of detail shots of the little soldiers and all of and remember the burgers. I think that's where I started, actually, but not sure. Yeah, and then this spectacular work here. You see a great sense of color here as well. Just a really interesting, what is this called? Blank Gallery Tokyo, and the translation, I guess this is it. Okay, so it's underneath. So not sure what the title is on it. Very cool. So just to get us started in another unusual direction out of Japan, thank you everybody for purchasing this edition of 15 here, Ancient Greece's Legacy. Put out a couple of works on the weekend. Looking forward, the plan is to be a lot more prolific here. So thanks everybody. This was gone in 15 minutes and even got a couple of secondary sales there. So thank you everybody for the support, and you know who you are. You are here, and big thank you. And also on this one, part of the Promoted Stories series. And thank you so much. And again, that probably went in an hour and a half. So huge thank you to everybody for that. Thanks for supporting my art collecting. My ability to art collect. Let's continue. Son of Stag. So a longtime viewer, actually, of this program, and someone I've known on the scene here, artist, and on Tezos at least since, I think I was looking in my messages way back in January of was it maybe December 2022 or January 2023? Son of Stag. So we're going to hear what Son of Stag has to say, has been closely following the scene, makes art as well. Just hear really from someone in the community here, Son of Stag, of what is going on, how Son of Stag sees things. So that's on this Wednesday with Roon Toon. Continuing on, thank you all for the support here. Just awesome on YouTube. Got some comments this time. Frank Frank Stame Years. Hey, Poco, just thought I'd mention, if you didn't know already, on the post with the torch and the heron. So that was Hermipe that we were discussing. And heron, sorry, with the torch and heron, it was a heron. That's the name of the bird. Sticker physicals. The characters next to them are monsters and characters from Elden Ring, which I've never heard of, maybe vaguely. Well worth checking out the artwork from the game. So it's a game or any From Software game. Or any From Software, I guess is the name of the company. Thank you for that, and very interesting, and I had no idea. So I appreciate that. PP Universal, thanks, Poco, for the feature. Keep on with the show. Abrazo. Thank you, PP. Great to hear from you, and wonderful work. Hashboy, really interesting trend. Thank you. Neopixels, indeed. Yeah, just as there's neo-surrealism, perhaps there are neopixels. As I was mentioning, and it almost, dovetails back to what we were discussing with Motohiro. This idea of new traditions, right? And it's interesting. Again, like Motohiro, you think of the energy, you think of Hermipe. Someone wrote a great comment. I think it's in the X comments. We'll come back to this idea of how the internet and artists coming up through the internet will likely overwhelm the traditional power structures that exist in the art scene. Probably. Mama, this is funny. Total show mal wieder. So awesome show once again. Time continuing again. Something like that. That is German for you, my friends. Tolle show mal wieder. Thank you, Mamadous. 2201, awesome to hear from you, and thank you for the comments. Also on X, Ile. So again, thank you. Beautiful, huge response. 17 bookmarks there. Yeah, so really nice response there. Thank you. Ile, oh no, I wasn't wanting the video to be scary in any way. Maybe I'll delete. And I said, please don't delete or leave it. I thought about how to work on the screenshot of the filtered screenshots and wrote a song. If I don't place a song to a video, it's often not seen on the timeline, and thought some of the glitch effects were really cool. No, it was hilarious. And when I said it was terrifying, I was kind of saying it in half in jest. But I think you probably relate if you start seeing this. I mean, imagine putting yourself in AI and you're starting to see the result of like an AI version of this show. It's kind of terrifying, right? But hilarious and interesting are the parts that I never perhaps should have mentioned there. So thank you for that. I mean, I love all kind of celebrations in whatever form of this show, and it's totally appreciated, put in the time and everything. So thank you. Jan Lucas Migone, yes sir, okay, awesome. Maybe referring to a new wave of pixel art, indeed. We got a few comments on that, people liking it. Bugged, thank you for maintaining this positive underground art community. It feels like a virtual home. And indeed, yeah, you can put underground in quotes, because how underground is it? It's kind of an interesting question. I guess it is. I call it the visual arts underground. When you look at the amount of people on Tezos collecting, you see so many familiar names. It's not like there are 10,000 collectors there there's always someone different. Like, it feels like it is, I think we can still call it underground. For how much longer is an interesting question. Perhaps forever, perhaps not. Thank you for the good vibes. It feels like a virtual home. Very nice of you to say that, Bugged. Welcome to the hearth. Elvin Yo, great. Talking about King's Quest. I made this piece 2.5 years ago. And that appears to be the figure from King's Quest, I believe. So how hilarious is that? So someone else hearing of King's Quest, if you can read this, you are still early. Hilarious. Lena Gordiva. Finally, I'm on trend, referring to pixel art and a new wave of pixel art. Thanks a lot. Your speech is gorgeous. Thank you, Lena. Very nice to hear from you. And thank you for posting, because, again, and community is another place to post. Like, this was a discovery, and we'll see another work by Lena in the pixel art section. Super interesting art. So thank you for posting and bringing that to my attention. Oros Macris, this was the comment I was just thinking about a couple of minutes ago. The quality and originality able to be provided by isolated, hardened, quote, guerrilla artists all over the world will be so huge, No physical art place, Paris, Berlin, London, or otherwise will be able to compete with the diversity and quality provided. Indeed. I was thinking to myself after that last show, and of course the art newspaper was suggesting or speculating and saying, is London the new home of digital art, the digital art capital? And I thought to myself, if anywhere is the capital, like the internet is the digital art capital, if there is an art capital, it's, don't you think? It's kind of, yeah. So I totally agree. Thank you for the comment. Couldn't agree more, as I wrote here. Braindead. It makes me feel grand to see more pixel artists on Web3 every day. So adding to the sentiment here. Pedro Jose, Coffee Artist Journal, awesome. Cheers, my friends. Big coffee cheers. Yudo, great insight. Thank you. What a wonderful crowd here. Wonderful community. Thank you, everybody. Mind Eye. Oh no, I'm never going to catch up. You will get time. I'm around November 14th, 15th. I actually get on a plane, so it'll be sporadic. So you will have time to catch up, my friend. Thank you. Our milk. Make Pixes dope again together. Let's go. So awesome. Our milk again, prominent pixel artists. Andre, these are badass. And great to see Andre Summer Blues. As many of you who have been around for a couple of years will recognize that name. Where has Andre been? It looks like Andre's back. So that is exciting. Looking forward to seeing new works. It's Lorena. RJ's art is incredible. So how great is that? Great to hear, Itzel, and glad it resonates. And I've been showing RJ's art. I've been a huge fan from very early on. Some of my favorite works are those early hand pastiches of what is the name of that artist who does that famous coffee shop? The name escapes me right now. It's on the tip of my brain. I can feel it. The neuron just needs to connect here. So anyways, RJ's awesome. Absolutely. Oros Makris, great show, very informative and on point. Enjoyed your comments about the London Scene article, wanting to be central in a decentralized system. Indeed. So thank you, Oris, for that, and great to hear. Yeah, I think I was feeling a little edgy that day, so a little bit more combative than maybe normal, but I'm glad that resonated. And it just, it did kind of, here we go again, It felt very, let's get this show is not political, but I tell people, because it's just not the purview of this show to get into left-right politics and all that sort of thing. It's not the purview of the show. It's not the editorial. But I tell people who I talk to, friends, whatever, where this comes up, I do tell them, I do look at the power structure of the art scene, so to speak, and the establishment. And it's almost kind of like, I'm not like a big Marxist critique guy, but there is I was almost thinking it's kind of like power, looking at the power structure, it's almost like a kind of Marxist critique. And I am definitely not, as I've said here, the closest I ever get to politics is yay, free market, right? And so anyways, so that is how I like to tackle it here. Let's look at what seems to be kind of going on, so to speak, from a power and establishment point of view, and not even that much, but it is kind of a fun way to look at it. Anyways, let's continue here. Mooncat. Cyber dudes are the new phenomena in on-chain encryption. Well, I'm glad to hear. Thank you, Mooncat, for sharing and beautiful artwork. Our milk. Pixels are absolutely ruling right now. It's a new wave. Check out this gentleman's show. My works have been featured in the last 3 episodes. Awesome. So again, thank you, Our Milk, for posting. And check this out. So Our Milk posted and not contacted, but words are failing here, my friends. And tagged is the word I'm trying to say. Hermipe. And Hermipe wrote this beautiful thing, talking to Our Milk. The trust we have in those who have supported us over a long period of time has led to stable production efforts. Apart from the theme or motive of the work, I feel a sense of solidarity as if we are creating a piece together. So a little bit from Hermipe. And also retweeted the show after Our Milk tagged him in a post with the show. So thank you, Our Milk. That is hilarious. And the world got a little bit smaller there with Hermipe. And look at this, finally on Hermipe. Look at this, the skateboard we're seeing being developed. Just super duper cool, and everything we're seeing there. So super interesting. Let's go through the community quickly here. Chris War, thank you for posting. What do we have? Look at this. And very psychedelic visuals. So probably made by Chris War the music, and probably Lejo X the visuals, if I had to guess. Thank you for posting. Super interesting. And it disappeared on me. Thank you, Rosacho. I guess these were just posted here since I loaded up the tab. Very cool. Work in progress. Look at that 8Padu. Right? Okay, so yeah, that is exciting. And it turned out pretty good, didn't it? Continuing, Ernesto Ash, thank you for posting. Brand new digital painting, and I believe that's on Tezos. Awesome. And there's Andre Summer Blues. Awesome to hear from you. Awesome illustrator. Kind of psychedelic illustrator. Looking forward to seeing what happens here. Retro Manny finally completed the Akira Drift tribute, sold out on Primary. That is, I don't know if I've ever seen the Akira movie. I think I have. But it's literally been 25 years. So, very cool. But yeah, that does look very a homage to Katsuhiro Otomo. So all sorts of celebrations of Japanese culture on this show in the last couple of shows, which is pretty exciting. Skulltake Spine Digital Art in the Before Times, fascinating. Thank you for posting this. It's super interesting. I brought up a couple of tabs, or at least one on this. So we're going to take a closer look in a future tab here. Thank you. Very interesting. Ugo Dici, La Danse, and actually I brought this up in the show too. Thank you for posting. Doing quite well there on Twitter. 369, thank you for posting. Creating is an innovation to express, connect, reflect, and to explore both ourselves and the world. But to me, it is one kind of a therapy. It is healing me. And I wish my creations healed you too. And there's something very soothing about this work. When you say it's healing, I can kind of feel it. It is very soothing. Psychofuturist, now doing all the signs of the zodiac. Totally awesome. Amazing productivity out of Psychofuturist. Primitive DRIP, thank you for posting. Very cool. Kind of has a, looks like the David statue with some drawing on it. Texadelic, thank you for posting. And very cool kind of print and kind of drawing, ink and print kind of look to it. Very cool. Vincent Law, cool abstract. Thank you for posting. Look at all the work that is posted. Greg Nick Shumika posting a work. And so, yeah, so I brought up actually a couple of works already by Greg later in the show, so we will see that. And there's Mamadou Sao. I'm excited to announce my collaboration with Times, who I believe is Santiago, a secret artist now. And there's Santiago times Sao, and it looks like a Santiago work, so that is coming on October 14th, which is today. Gavin Shapiro, Night Check, and so all sorts of action here in the community. 305, thank you for posting. 2002, and I believe this is the last one. This is on Zora. Very cool and cool abstract. And here's Tegenhoff, and turning it into what looks like here kind of a digital artwork, kind of a digital pastiche, taking the two figures, interestingly, and here is our link from yesterday. Here also, so big shout out to Neon Monk for sending this to me. Guess who's on the blockchain, but not for a while? Hermipe. So super interesting, isn't it? And you can still buy. It's not cheap. For 1 ETH, you can still buy some Hermipe works, but you can get them. And so, as Neon Monk was telling me, maybe if maybe Hermipe could be, persuaded to come back on if they start making sales again. Because, and some great works here. And actually did quite well. I mean, sold, looks like 6 or 7 ETH here, maybe more. 8 ETH. So that adds up. So very cool. And this was interesting too, just on that front. I showed you, I guess, Mackenzie, if I'm not mistaken, solo show. This was also posted by Hermipe. So just kind of interesting. And it looks like on October 4th to October 14th, if I'm not mistaken, solo exhibition, Pulse into Flow at the Meteor Club, which looks like it's in Japan. So very interesting, kind of different feel. Again, kind of looks like manual pixel art, really cool in its own style. And here's a physical. And this one, Mackenzie's solo exhibition, a calm picture and a humid story. It's comfortable. So just interesting and fascinating to see. This must be done by laser, but I do not know. I still need to try laser engraving or laser cutting. I assume it's laser cutting. And here is perhaps part of that show there too. So super interesting. Enigmatris on Super Rare. How cool is that? So the ASCII is coming to Super Rare next week. Now I think Enigmatris already had a Super Rare, but I could be wrong. But I thought they were already on Super Rare, but I guess the ASCII is going to come to Super Rare, because that seemed to me like it was a recent kind of development or innovation, that Enigmatris, a breakthrough. And so now we're going to bring those works to Super Rare. Even love, this almost looks like an old printer, inkjet printer or something, put these letters together. Super cool. Let us continue. Check this out. So I don't know what to make of this, you tell me. Look at this. So Strange Thing, Lamborghini, and Urus. So that is on the stories there. So there's a Strange Thing where I don't know if it kind of looks like Lamborghini is working with Strange Thing, coming soon by Strange Thing. So who knows if that is actual Lamborghini or if Strange Thing's playing with Lamborghini. Not sure, but pretty cool. And Ranixtier. Okay, so we're looking at art coins, right? Looks like Ranixtier's art coin did pretty well. Look, Mom, my art has a chart. So there is Ranixtier's art coin. Kind of interesting. You never know. Maybe these crypto ideas actually turn into something. I'll continue to, if anything else interesting comes my way, or feel free to post in the community if you see something. I'm open-minded on this. Let's continue. James Bloom, also known as Crash Blossom. People saying Freeze was boring, but we went to Thomas Dane, Josh Lilly, Gisela Captain, Fritz Street, Societe, and they have a gallery if it's the same Societe, in Berlin, which is really great, and saw some great art. My daughter got free stuff and was even offered to hang her drawing in one of the booths. And what I actually think was interesting is, just to feed into our picture of the contemporary art scene, people saying Freeze was boring, and just the market in general. So I actually find that pretty interesting. So just kind of more, circumstantial evidence as we try and figure out what's actually going on. This is interesting. So Kachi Kazakina, the art detective, the Met's Siena blockbuster has priceless loans. How did it come together? So there is a major. It's almost worth, traveling to New York for, is what I thought in my head. Like, I don't know. I can't afford it. It's really, I've done so much traveling, but in my mind, this is a show that is almost worth, you travel for. There's a major show at the Met till January 25th. And so on Siena Art, right? And I'll just read you a couple of paragraphs here, because I found it quite significant. Kachi Kazakina, October 11th. While the Contemporary Art Tribe was in London for Freeze Week, I found myself magnetically drawn to a much earlier chapter of art history here in New York. And again, it's kind of like a subtle dig at translation. I'm way more interested in what's going on here at this medieval art show than I am at Freeze Week, about Freeze Week. And I'm not trying, just circumstantial evidence that I think we should note as we continue here. The magnet was a seductively titled new exhibition, Siena, The Rise of Painting, 1300 to 1350, at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So that's at the Met. So that looks like a major show. This week had a similar feeling. There are 95 treasures. There, inside darkened rooms, 95 treasures glow, ranging from a jaw-dropping altarpiece brought to New York from a church in Arezzo, Italy, to a 7-inch carved ivory Virgin Mary. The undisputed star of the exhibition is Duccio di Buoninsegna, a Sienese master of the start of the 14th century. I imagine that's El Duccio is who they're referring to. Better known as Duccio, he was a rebel tax evader and a big deal painter. Put simply, he was the bridge between the flatness of Byzantine icon painting and the perspective of the early Renaissance. Finally, in 2004, the Met shelled out $45 million for an 11 by 8-inch gold ground panel, Madonna and Child, the most that the nation's biggest museum had ever paid for an artwork. Finally, the first slide in an Art History 101 course is a Duccio. He was one of the founders of Western art. Philippe de Montebello, the Met's director, told the New York Times back then. So, and has 13 paintings by the artist. So this looks like an unbelievable show, doesn't it? And you see the color. This looks like just great. Another one, and of course we've seen Ben Davis before. I could spend 1 million hours in the Met's weird and wonderful Sienese art show. Siena, The Rise of Painting, 1300 to 1350, is more than just a prehistory of the Italian Renaissance. Indeed. And just, again, more just praise for this show. If I had to come up with a hook to justify writing about Siena, The Rise of Painting, well, it doesn't really need a hook. Sienese art is the hook, and the show is the largest and best collection of painting and sculpture from this time and place that you will ever see in one museum. But if I needed to give the Met's new exhibition a present-day hook, here's the one I would give it in one word: tactility. And I think this is actually an interesting point within... So here you have Kachi Kazakina, the art detective, saying, if I was to overstate it, forget Frieze, I'm Siena at the Met. And here you see, listen to this. I feel a lot of people are talking about the tactile, about the need for culture that feels rooted in space and context due to a felt loss of place and permanency in these digital times. And one of the things that's so arresting here is the evidence of a time when images were felt as much as seen. Now, I have a different interpretation than I think that Ben Davis meant here. But I think, to me, when people say they want the tactile, when they want a feeling rather than just over the abstraction, and this is part of the problem, I would argue, of what's happened with art since the 80s. It has, and we're painting with broad brushes, and as we've noted before, it doesn't mean that there aren't huge exceptions and there's not genius everywhere. Or maybe not everywhere, but there are, without question, there are, you look at, again, late Richard Prince, you look at late John Baldessari, even late Warhol, for me, is spectacular. And they're all, having the same conversation, partly, again, traveling through the mediums. All three of those artists. And probably Warhol, interestingly, the pioneer. The first one to really, I would argue, in a convincing way, where you can kind of see he's playing with really going through the mediums. Of course, there are other examples, but in a very persuasive aesthetic way, Warhol was very significant, I'd argue, in that conversation. And so there are exceptions here. But generally speaking, part of the issue with installation art, with a lot of art that people see, a lot of the common complaints you'll hear when you're with your friends going to the galleries, as one does, it's not resonating, right? And so here, it's back to feeling over, I would say, abstraction is kind of how I'm reading Ben Davis's idea here. And I think that's one of the great things that we have here in what I'm loosely calling the second generation of digital art, is people who grew up with, again, video games, and then have the tools, this painting with a computer, And now they're just doing things that they find poetic and beautiful and colorful. It's not just some abstraction, which I think, again, aesthetically separates it from this first generation as well. And there is definitely aesthetic in the first generation. But again, it's a bit more cool and abstract, and cool in the sense of it's not as emotional. It's a bit more, again, you're coding rather than to make your image, rather than what I'd call painting with a computer. Right? So again, here we are, and people are just rave reviews, and you can see why. I mean, the delight. And these are works I've never seen. Like, I kind of want to travel there. It's only on till the 25th. I don't know, how you do it, but looks spectacular. Like, and you see each one of these little images, and you look at that. I mean, and the white dress of the Virgin Mary. I mean, it's spectacular, So I have an idea. I came up with it with a friend on Friday. As far as if I were to do, finally, and I'm going to speed up a bit. If I were to do a Patreon where you do kind of adventures in culture, and then you really go in deep, maybe you talk about Devo one day, Devo, Duran Duran, whatever the thing is, or maybe you're talking about, okay, let's go into El Ducho, right? You put out a video just once every week or two, because I can't really do too many more than that. And then you just make it a thing, and then maybe after a year, then you release it to the public. But if you want to watch it, support, maybe you don't. Maybe you just keep it tight. But I think eventually, maybe not in a year, maybe, who knows? But just thoughts out loud. The Met. So here it is, Siena, the rise of painting. So as you can see here, this looks like a blockbuster. So, yeah, just opened in New York. If you're nearby, or if you're in the U.S., make your way over there. Let's continue. Magnus Resch. While traveling through Europe, I spoke with several gallerists. So Magnus Resch is a prominent, art market expert, serial entrepreneur, has a book on, was around when NFTs were booming, So let's continue. It appears that European galleries are struggling. Okay, while traveling through Europe, I spoke with several gallerists. It appears that European galleries are struggling severely. Based on my conversations, alpha galleries revenue down 20%, so the top galleries, beta galleries by 50%, and the rest by 70%. That almost sounds optimistic. This aligns with auction houses, which are down 30%. So, more evidence. And again, those two just all three, actually, of these things we saw here. Okay, I guess some people are saying Frieze is boring. I skipped Frieze to go to the Met. Feeling over abstraction. Now, I'm painting with a very broad brush here, but all kind of interesting. Let's continue. OMZ. The last few years are a blip in the timeline of art and just the start of art on the blockchain. If you think the story has already been written and the stars are already established, you've learned nothing from history. And totally. And time will work it out. Time usually seems to get things right, don't they? And sometimes it takes a long time, but it does tend to get it, to a certain degree right. And again, sometimes you look at Hilda Klint, it took a long time, but now, okay, Hilda Klint is celebrated and recognized. It took 100 years, maybe longer, but, it happens. So I think an interesting point. This was posted in, or at least part of what Skull Takes was posting in the community. And I don't want to go too long here. But you can see, this is what I want to highlight here. So then are they talking about selling digital art before the blockchain? This is back in 1991, interview with Rhizome's then executive director, Lauren Cornell. So then are they going to be receiving a file on a USB? Are they going to be receiving an email from you? I think that we might give them a little object, so just not sure. I think we might do this. So give them the file on a USB. And I've discussed this before, this is basically how it used to work. Ask Lorna Mills, who's been doing digital and GIFs for quite a while. How did you do, how were you selling art before the blockchain? It was USB and a certificate of authenticity. So give them the file on a USB and then also a certificate, because media works often require certificates because they're more complicated to manage than the painting. So, So interesting there. This was also interesting. Part of the same thread, I think. For $6,000, Nessim, who I think is this artist here, will sell you a set of 10 prints, hand-colored with pastel and watercolor, in a handmade portfolio and a set of 20 slides, 10 left, 10 right, and the stereo viewer in a fancy leather pouch. Nassim hand-colors her work because the inks from color printers fade over time. Again, this is, the dilemma of the digital artist pre-blockchain, where you have to make it physical. Otherwise, you had these, at best, it was a USB and a certificate of authenticity. Trust me, right? Robert Hendel has two of her works. One of her pieces is in the permanent art collection at the National Gallery in Budapest, Hungary. So very cool. And, I think there's still something to be said for this. Interestingly, let's get to the work here. We're almost an hour in. Jack on Fire. So Cedar Plank, also known as Hasdrubal Waffle, dropping a ton of artwork here in the last few days, really since the last show. So here is this wild monster, or skeleton, in its underwear, and some kind of amazing painting here, digital painting. Jack on Fire, edition of 5. One went for 77 Tezos, impressively. This one was quite interesting too, Afterlife, edition of 5. And as you see here, again, just kind of having fun, and the lasers coming from the face, who knows? Again, kind of like a modern day Basquiat. We almost see it in the crown here, a homage of sorts. And again, love the color for describing the afterlife, a little bit of animation and everything, just super interesting work, as you can see everywhere. It's very painterly, isn't it? Another work, this is done on Fantavision, One Imagines, and here we see this kind of wild, Hasdrubal Waffle or Cedar Plank, also known as Cedar Plank, can kind of do just kind of whatever they want right now, and it's all just kind of looking kind of cool. Great background here, too. So this is, I guess, a dog? I'm not even sure. It did very well. Now it's 375 Tezos, and again, edition of 5, and one selling for 65 Tezos at auction. So Long Bonus. So here's kind of a weird one where the person is being breathed out. So not even sure what the reference is there, and that's at auction for 75 Tezos. And Stimming. This sold for 75 Tezos, so again, doing very well here. Cedar Plank, looks like Fantavision again, based on the animation and the illustration. Here's another one, Cedar Plank, Mano a Mano. Maybe two guys maybe kissing here in this. And again, kind of bending artwork here, or at least kind of morphing. Interesting effect, let's say. Lots going on here. That's 375 Tezos on secondary now. Sold at the auction for 54 to Ahek. And Do an Endo. This is an edition of 5. So as you see here, maybe using the same kind of bendy software that we were noticing in the last one. So maybe a new effect for Waffles, a new animation effect, and Stonewashed. Maybe referring to jeans here, and here, very cool Fantavision work here. So all sorts of fun and creativity being had here with the pants going on the person. And so that is Cedar Plank, also known as Hasdrubal Waffle, with a whole bunch of works all at once. Something to talk about. So this is Zwozo. Let's see what Zwozo is up to. Very unusual piece. I mean, if there's one word you could use with Zwozo, I think it would be unusual. And here, it almost looks like a schoolroom or something. What an odd subject matter, hey? Beautifully executed as ever, and this is an edition of 11, sold out at 15 Tezos each. Nice work. Zozo continuing to create wonder for us over here. Nov 1914, Bañista en la Playa. So something on the beach by Fernando Botero. So very cool here as well. And I guess those are palm trees done with Nov 1914's gradient style, and just awesome. Totally awesome. And you gotta love the swimsuit there. Like, this is awesome. The spheres here are brilliant, and look at the hair. There's kind of humor there. I mean, this is awesome. And the knees, great division into shapes, and look at these great gradients. So more mastery by Nov 1914, and this sold out like immediately at 15 Tezos. Here's another one, Odalisque in red jacket after Henri Matisse. So I don't think we saw this one, but another spectacular work here. I guess we're seeing Nov 1914's influences in these works. Here's Martin Bruce with a new one of one. This is only 50 Tezos. And this is going to be done, so Scamra, the only bidder so far. $34 for a one of one Martin Bruce here. Porto Worm. So I think Martin Bruce is in Portugal, if I remember right. And so here is a work, so kind of looks like a photo, but also some drawing or painting on top. And then just, there's no one quite like Martin Bruce in terms of originality and creativity and just visually interesting. I mean, so visually interesting. RJ, 3 doors. I think this is burned. Point and click microfiction. So not sure. You have become death as death must choose, let me do this, a form of imminence. And again, we have some textures here. Why is that going to the top? So here it is. And I guess those are the 3 doors. So not sure if this will come back or not. So burned. And it was an edition of 1 before interesting textures as ever. Here's Yuri J, just posting on X, interesting abstract. So it'll be interesting to see if we get different versions of this abstract. Again, kind of a bit of a, what's the word? Maybe a melting tool or something. I won't call it Control Z on Photoshop. Not undo on Photoshop, but maybe there's another one. I want to call it the Liquify. It almost seems like we saw that in Hasdrubal Waffle as well, or Cedar Plank. It looks like there's a Liquify thing going on. Perhaps here too. Not sure. Not sure at all. So cool work by Yuri J. And not sure if this is new. This is called New Order. And there we see the octopus sitting at a restaurant wonderfully. And here, so fabulous. So perhaps a preview, perhaps an old work, not sure. And there is the piano underneath the table that is being played by the octopus who is looking at the menu. And there is the street outside. Awesome piece. Here's Kudakola. And this was picked up by Absurd Deity. For how much? 31 Tezos. Food and beverages. And kind of in the similar spirit to Cedar Plank there. In this kind of doodling, so to speak, this digital doodling that we see here. So all very interesting. And here we see a sampled brush, which we see Ed Marola use sometimes. Here, kind of like a different kind of technique where you just kind of get a stamp and then it repeats. Creating your own brush, as we see sometimes with PP Universal. Very interesting. Some interesting works by Nick Shumika. Float. Pretty nice for Excel to make this pool here. And I love how Greg's keeping these numbers in here. Nice pool. Fabulous. Totally cool. I think, did this sell out? There are 3 left at $2.99. I might have to pick up one of those. This was spectacular too. Fireworks at Tappan Zee Bridge. And this is 5 Tezos edition of 25. And so I think still quite a few left. And kind of has, you see this, it almost looks like a Japanese woodblock, which is probably what it's based on. So kind of a different kind of pastiche, I guess, than we see with Nov, but kind of in the same Probably could show it in the same show. Let's say, homages to influences, so to speak. Very, very, very interesting here. So again, using, I think, Excel, as you can see in the border. Super interesting. Mariana J.U., I think this is new. This is on base, and as we see here, I believe it's KidPix that makes these flowers if they show up here. I'll give it another second. Otherwise, I think we'll just have to leave it here. So none minted so far, 0.015 ETH. Greens is the name of the work. So cool kind of GIF, I assume that is, from Mariana J.U. Let's continue. Here's Mumble Boy. This was picked up by Yuri J, edition of 1. So nice piece. Love the color. And a nice kind of just chaotic collage by Mumble Boy, as you can see. And again, just going back and forth between physical and digital, and a true medley of physical and digital works here. Just tons to look at. And then zooming out. So it's been doing this since the 90s. A variation on this technique that has evolved. A nice big file, 5200 by 5700. Here's that work by Ugo Digi. La Danse, a tribute to Henri Matisse, and then making it of screens with La Danse written on the screen. I thought this was a very cool work. So nice piece by Ugo Digi. I don't know if it's been minted anywhere. And here, one of the artists who best contributed to defining the revolutionary development in the visual arts during the first decades of the 20th century, and significant developments in painting and sculpture. Thank you, Ugo. Super interesting. Here's Spiegel's Meskinen. With a work on Foundation. This is on Ethereum at an auction starting bid of 0.404. This is fine. So I guess an edition of 1. And here it is. We are lucky that it loads. And I think we saw maybe an early version, or at least I did, online. And so here's the animated version. And playing off of the meme with the room on fire and the person inside. I think it's like a bear or something with a bowler hat saying this is fine. Instead, the computer is saying this is fine, as we see this beautifully dithered fire. Great piece. I wonder how big, 90 frames, 4 color. That's what I was wondering. GIF, 320 by 240. Is this on chain? Is kind of my next question. How big is this? Probably not on chain, otherwise it would say. Interesting. But it's not, doesn't look like a huge file though either. This is Sui Soichi, The Devil's Cross and Evil's Heart by Sui Soichi. This is on sealed art, and we'll see if we can get a bigger picture here. So kind of a wild, again, this kind of looks like effects on effects, and always, I'm waiting for Mirakit also to come back. Again, could always sort of hang with Mirakit on the wall. Very interesting, edgy drawing, and we have another one. This one with a little more kind of noise texture, perhaps. Night, no destinations yet. So love these distorted drawings and then really processed a lot online. And here is, I think you'd call it the beginning, what is it called? The beginning of the world. What is the name of Gustave Courbet? If I had to venture a guess, I think that's Courbet. And so, of course, given the walk treatment, GM. So hilarious and beautiful. Rendition here. Another great pastiche. And here's another work by Walk. This was collected by James Bloom, who gave the commentary there earlier on the shows, the good shows in during Freeze. And I think that's worth, noting. There were some, people are also saying there's good shows, and that's worth noting. And there's a lot of great art out there in the contemporary art scene for all of the, criticism you could level at it. There is a lot of great art out there, and it's an important thing to mention and to note. So I'm not even sure what this is. It looks like my snowboarding skills. So maybe based on a picture. Kind of looks like a new series by Walk, who also was doing that wild screenshot series. Here's Lorna Mills, Ardent Regina. That is, again, it's the name of a horse. Of course, I come from Saskatchewan, where we pronounce it Regina. So anyways, here are a couple of eagles, kind of a cool nature work by Lorna Mills. Now 1,000 Tezos on secondary. I guess sold out. Nice work. Sold out at 20 Tezos each. Nice work. Here's White Horse. This is by Soom, a digital painting. And as you can see here, so new painting by Soom. which I don't think we've seen too many new paintings recently, like here and there. So it's great to see, and some cool works in the background. I noticed some of her secondary was selling well as well. Kind of a different, almost like an airbrush type work. I assume it's a digital work. It looks like a digital. Edition of 10 for 3 Tezos, 2 gone already, just listed. Gregorio Zanardi. My Genesis in Exchange is very close. So this isn't finished. This is a work in progress, but very cool painting here. Digital painting by Gregorio. Going to be put up on Siena. It is not minted yet. I even like this, where you see, just like we were seeing with Motohiro, a little bit of the underdrawing being left in. You see that blue over there and over there. Nice. It actually adds some nice details, doesn't it? Quilanina. This is on Tezos Resistencia Indigena, and this is digital painted in Procreate, assisted with DALL-E 3. Interesting. So awesome painter, Quilanina. So a combination of painting and DALL-E 3. Very cool. And this great shirt there. Beautiful. And I think you'd call that translation Indigenous Resistance, I think is the translation. Jake Studios, Where Am I? So also putting out a few works here, I think at least a couple. So interesting piece here as you see the cursor and maybe the Jake Studios figure with these great shoes. Just awesome. And how much is this going for? So 50 Tezos to Salawaki. Awesome. Here's another one, Bull Boy, edition of 20. And I think this was just minted. Actually, that's June 2nd, 2023. So here's an old Jake Studios. So I think it was probably posted somewhere. So interesting there. Art Presti. I think this is a new work. And again, you get this almost like Kandinsky-esque digital pixel art abstract. Psychedelic Hypnotical Abstraction, edition of 4. And this was just posted and 2 gone at 5 Tezos each. And I think this is a preview by Sabato RGB SNEC, Deluxe Paint 4. So interesting work here. Not exactly sure. Kind of looks like a snake and maybe some barriers. Not exactly sure what the references are. Interesting. Here's Hermipe with a new pixel artwork and posted on Twitter. And of course I follow, actually this is Avenir, who I don't know if I follow them. And here it kind of looks like surveillance cameras, doesn't it? So I'm sure this would just go over fabulously on the blockchain. So maybe Hermipe will come back. So this is part of an ad, I think. And there you see a bullhorn, a surveillance camera. Here's Element Lee. This is interesting, playing again with inverted light, basically, and the absence of light in the darkness, as Element Lee has commented on in the past. And here, this is called Involving, so kind of a mysterious work here. It looks like a figure in a room with some sort of tunnel. Wild one. Here's Françoise Gamma. And interesting, almost looks like a digital sculpture, but pixelated. So that is interesting. Here's Mason III, or Endless Mason, commissioned work, Maya Grove. So kind of half pixel art, half glitch. And this is, I think, on Zora, exclusive drop on Zora, celebrating their expansion to the base and ZK Sync networks. So it continues. So Zora going multi-chain. I wonder how that works, because I thought Zora was its own blockchain. But maybe, I guess they are multi-chain, though, too. So they have their own, but they also do Ethereum base and ZK Sync. Okay, I think we figured that out. This is interesting. This is that pinball guy. ASCII portrait of Detroit's most famous organ donor, so RoboCop. But you see here, it looks like the photo, it's like a photo of the screen, which is a nice touch, isn't it? That famous image reminds you of Pee Pee Cop. Here's that pinball guy again, 25-cent dilemma. So playing with ASCII, and again, looks like a photo of a screen or video of a screen, which is super interesting. And it looks like a Pepsi and Coke. Kind of adds a whole other dimension to the piece, doesn't it? I like it. I think it really adds a layer of, it just makes it that much more interesting than, just a pure ASCII on its own. I mean, you see the same thing with Enigmatris, where you see kind of this texture in the work here. It's not just pure text with no other processing. It's not just purely graphical. Like there's a texture element to it. And here, so again, always experimenting here. We see a little bit of magic wand here in the selection. We also see kind of a mono palette, monocolor palette, so to speak. A lot of sepias and grays, and it looks like a skull. Very interesting. Here, just going with an outline and removing that outline really nicely. And of course, the Vermeer painting there, also by Enigmatris. And here is Plants, also known as Capin, also known as Figments, also playing with ASCII. 960 by 840. Plants are multipixelar. Okay, so let's just... And here you see, and not a huge work, maybe 1,000 by 800 if I had to guess, 960 by 840. And you see just putting the ASCII on top and animating it a little bit, and just really interesting. I love the frame, by the way. If you notice the frame and these wild corners, love it. Even there, these drawn frame, I mean, wild how it gets narrower to wider. Here's Sachu the Arty, Industrial Horizons. Interesting. Almost looks like kind of a little bit magic wandy here. Not sure. Some sort of selection with, you see, basically it looks like a factory in the background. You have nature in the front, and then underneath is circuitry, kind of being masked over here by circuitry. It's almost like a matrix. Industrial Horizon. Interesting piece, and it looks like it sold out at 10 Tezos each. Yeah, sold out. So nice work there. Here is Stip and Pixel on Zora. I guess they put this QR code on everything. At least it's not here when you zoom in or you maximize. And so here's some cats, some cool pixel art cats from Stip and Pixel. Again, this is on Zora, 43 minted. And here's another really nice one. Love the color here with these two minimal cats. I love it. Also on Zora, fabulous color. Only 9 minted so far, Thud Jump Meow. And here's one more, 15 minted. And I thought this is like, Stipin's really cool in the minimalism and the style, really, of pixel art that they do. I believe out of Argentina, I believe out of Buenos Aires, but not positive. I think out of Argentina. Lena Gordiva, who we saw in the comments. Look at this piece. Tezos Tuesday Trek. So I don't think this, where can I collect this? I will mint on objects soon. So pretty cool, isn't it? Kind of looks like someone in the security area with all the screens. Who knows? Very cool pixel artwork. So again, great to discover Lena's work. Green Ginger. Happy Sunday, everyone. Let's chill for today, and a cool little architectural interior, shall we say, with that 45-degree angle, I think, or at least that perspective, that video game perspective, shall we say, with a moving background. Very interesting. Here's Brain Dead with a kind of looks like a turntable, or maybe it's a 8 projector. What is it called? It's escaping me right now. It kind of looks like an old movie projector is actually what it looks like, or camera. So very cool. So Brain Dead keeps putting out a work a day in October. Green Ginger with a work Telep Nuot, inspired from iconic palette town from Kanto region. So this is an edition of 1, and it's at 75 Tezos as a starting bid. So very cool, 1 of 1 from Green Ginger. Love again, it kind of has that video game perspective, right, that we were noting before. And interesting, 100% on chain, as Retro Manny was saying. Very cool. Let's continue. Burger, this is by Chaz, who's back on the scene. So an arcade game and a retro burger-inspired arcade game where it looks like you make burgers hilariously. And there's burgers in the background. So cool work here by Chaz. Edition of 10 for now $650. It looks like it's sold out. Nice work there. Here's Bite by Bit, Motel Pool. Some chunky audio. Almost like Pong. So kind of a wild one. Animation and sound made by 1988 Fantavision. So using the same software as we saw with Waffles or Cedar Plank at the beginning of the show. Here we have Capin, who's also did the Figments work, or the plants work that we just saw. There we go. So a few more on Rodeo from Capin. So continuing, just putting out these jams, which it looks like just elements from Capin's palette, really digital, bag of tricks. Very cool work here. Here's Nicholas Sassoon, SGRB2. Very nice sphere here, just with, I guess, 3 or 4 colors, maybe 4 colors. Not sure what the S stands for, but of course RGB being colors, maybe super RGB. Not sure. Here is Kiro and times Ranixdeer. And so cool collab. Of course, we see Ranixdeer's kind of gradients here, and then a bit of a Kiro video, analog video glitch overlay, so to speak, or mix. And that's at 0.08 ETH. Here's another work by Kiro. This is on Zora. And playing with the anime, beautiful juxtaposition here, or mix of anime and this these textured analog video, just textures, video textures. Very cool. Speaking of video textures, here's Ex-Mortal, Skybound. So more waves, more beaches, more nature scenery. So nice piece here from Ex-Mortal. It's an edition of 13 and selling out at 11.69. Here's Cal Flemmer, Smile. And is this on chain? Minted for Midnight Mass, October 2024. 192 by 192 canvas, 1000 by 1000 final. So great textures here as well. And beautiful. Look at that. So edition of 10, and that looks like it sold out at 666. So Cal Flemmer continues to develop their market there impressively. Composition 355. This is by Klaus. And cool animated abstract. I mean, amazing. We're at 355, so still putting out one a day. This is still available at 21 Tezos. Here's Renki Ikuji. And so another animated abstract here, almost looking impossible, but not quite. Just a very interesting animation by Renki here, not listed. Here's Perfect Loop, the Infinite Balance, just kind of a rad looking piece here, playing with operating system iconography, maybe some kind of feedback and zooming in at the same time, and some colors flashing, pretty trippy. Figs from Plums, this is Etienne Jacob, I think. Just kind of a cool, this is, I don't know if this is a GIF or a video or what it is, but it's looking pretty cool. I don't know if this is generative, it's pretty impressive. Would hang well with our friend, the master of psychedelic abstraction, who is escaping. I am half sick here, so, but I'm sure we will see. What is his name? It's not Pixel Boy. It's not human. Yeah, anyways, we will find out. We will definitely see their work again. Zhu Ziliang, Our Dreams. It's kind of an interesting piece here by Zhu Ziliang. Definitely creates an atmosphere, doesn't it? Of light, of these screens. And what does Zhu say? Our Dreams. So very cool piece here. Very dreamlike. Here's Koda Nakazono. Continuum number 210. And so again, we have kind of the metallic structure that is animated. And then interestingly, we're starting to see this a bit of movement in the background here of a different kind, and a wire. Interestingly, there a little bit of a Photoshop canvas. Interesting, orange. Very internet-y, isn't it? Continuum number 210, edition of 5. And that is sold out at 10 Tezos. Try not to sneeze here. No Hygiene, Champion Kimbon. So here, more totally experimental AI work by No Hygiene. Continuing to break new ground here. Here's another one. I kind of love this piece. A whole bunch of bees together. I guess that's Britney Spears. And so interesting. I don't know if it's AI collage. There's that angel figure that we often see, edition of 1 for 45 Tezos. Here's another interesting piece, Gigi. So wild work. This one's sold. And great kind of selection there. Really rough but cool selection of the legs there, on the legs, as you see. Skamra, Around the Pool and Remembering You. And here, see kind of a textured, again, very textured AI artwork. Kind of looks a little bit more pixelated. Beautiful piece from Skamra. Nice color and everything. Stable diffusion and diffusers textural inversion. Edition of 1, selling for 40 Tezos at auction. Nice work. Here's Cha. And I've been discussing a little bit the weird phenomenon of AI pixel art. And here you see it in action with, some squares perfect, other squares a little off. It's a pretty interesting visual experience. It kind of looks like a landscape here using DALL-E from 2022 and sunrise over an alien ocean filled with strange clouds. And here, Tukes, as we see here, really interesting piece, especially this part right here. And you see the chair, very smooth, kind of serene work by Tukes. Here is Mikey de la Creme, Bank Robber Blues. I don't know if we've seen this one. I don't think so. And cool gray guitar with the bank robber seemingly in the front door, just inside the hall. And here is Human Boy with a couple of cool works. Kind of sci-fi AI with a texture, that kind of screen texture. Here's another one, kind of insect machines, so to speak, put out by Human Boy. So very cool there. As we go into the physicals, here's Filippo Francocci. Interesting abstract on black paper. Once again, a ton of details here. Incredible, actually. Shall we see if we can open it very quickly? As you see here, all the details. Pretty amazing. We saw the process the other day. Here's another great one by Filippo Francocci, The Return. An oil painting done on a piece of recycled wood. Very cool. The image was inspired by various iterations created by an AI and reinterpreted by me using oil paint. Yeah. This, again, as AI is an inspiration for actual painting compositions, it's bound to happen. I feel like I've seen it even in what I'd consider more contemporary trad art, and you just go, that kind of looks like maybe AI helped out in the composition. I mean, theoretically, you could simply put the work on your projector, project it onto the canvas, and then you just start, tracing it out. Right? It seems like, I'm sure that's already happened, is happening, and will continue to happen. David Hales needs a title. Just a rad artist, as you can see here. Look at this. It just continues to do, beautiful work. Acrylic on canvas. And here is, we'll be spending Thursday and Friday with Girls Like Us. Now, I'm not sure, so that's not in Berlin. This is part of the Kristen Hielardi Gallery, and the artist, I think, is Rufai Zakari. So very cool, kind of, as you see here, almost using like elements from the grocery store, some collage, some painting, some textures, some paper. This is an interesting piece. Hugo Capi, it's not gallery, just, again, taking almost like these diagrams, but adding humor here, a little edgier on that one. And here's Sui Soichi with a drawing. Weeks go by on this one. Happy to be learning to draw and excited to finish. I saw Dan Control also say, excited to draw. So pretty interesting piece by Sui Soichi. And finally, Tim Lahan, some sort of song for the times. And just kind of cool watching these musical notes melt. And that is your show, my friends. Thank you for joining me. And I hope you have a wonderful start to the week. Come join us and hang out on Wednesday with Son of Stag. Until next time, take care.